Hello everyone, this is the Eiffel Tower podcast. My name is Oliver G, and this is a show about Paris. And when you think about Paris, I think a lot of words might spring to your mind, and I feel like one of those words might be fashion. This is, of course, one of the fashion capitals of the universe, and that is what today's episode is all about, with special guest Monica Ainley, also known as Monica de la Villadière. We're going to talk about her in a second. First, a little tiny bit of Eiffel Tower news, 2 bits of news really. A huge thank you to everybody out there who helped make our new children's book a reality. Roger the Liger in Paris will come out next month, October. A very successful Kickstarter campaign for the initial print run. It's going to be a book. You're going to see it all over the place really soon. I'll talk about that at the end of the show. And in more unexpected news, I can say, the Eiffel Tower podcast appears to have broken the American market in that it was a question on a popular US TV game show. So I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end, but you can imagine I almost fell off my seat when I heard it, when I saw it. I'll tell you about it at the end when I come back and speak with you. But first, today's guest, Monica. So if you're a French person, she'll tell you her name is Monica de la Villadière, because that's the name that she got when she married. If you are an English person, she might say her name is Monica Ainley, because it's easier to remember and pronounce. Either way, search it, you will find her online, and you'll see that she's a Canadian in Paris. She's a fashion and culture journalist. She co-hosts a wildly popular podcast called Fashion No Filter. Hey, perhaps you've heard of it before, perhaps you're a listener too. And on top of all that, she is a very popular Instagrammer under the name Monica Ainley DLV, where over 100,000 people follow her daily life. I sat down with her in a cafe. So we're going to do this show in the Luxembourg Gardens. We're going to sit down, have a chat on one of those benches looking out over the park, but it was pouring with rain. And as regular listeners to this show might remember, the friendly folks at Treize Jardin, so like the number 13 in French, or Jardin, the cafe that's right next to it. I got in touch with them and they said, come in before we open, we'll give you a quiet corner. So that's where we sat for this interview. Thanks to the staff at Treize Jardin, friendly as always, and they've been on the podcast before if you go back and listen to the one about the 6th arrondissement from 2 seasons ago, I think. So yes, you might feel like you're sitting in the cafe with us. You might hear the sounds of them setting up in the background. You might even hear the rain pouring just outside the window. So that's it. I've set the scene. You're in Paris with me and Monica right now, sitting in the window seat, looking out over a very rainy and beautiful Latin Quarter and the Jardin de Luxembourg in the background, ready to learn something and ready to while away half an hour over a coffee and some cake. Let's do it. And here we are, Monica. Welcome to my studio for the day.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a beautiful studio.
Isn't it nice?
Yeah.
Although I worry that we'll both get wet when we leave here because the rain is thundering down.
It is pouring with rain. We're looking onto the very rainy Luxembourg Gardens. I said to you when we arrived, I actually kind of like this weather. It's very moody, and it's been so hot in Paris at the end of the summer. And there's obviously not very much air conditioning in this city, so I don't mind a little bit of bad weather.
That air conditioning thing is, I think a lot of people don't realize how hot Paris gets when it gets hot, because there's no aircon anywhere, is there?
Just those little boxes. So hot. Yeah. Also, I live what they call sous les toits, under the rooftops, which is so some of these extraordinary old buildings. I'd love to live further down in one day, but those are the really expensive apartments. And then you have smaller but very pretty ones with like beams sticking out at the top in this old left bank style building, and I love it. But we don't have an elevator or air conditioning, and we do have a 6-month-old. So this summer was, luckily we got away a lot, but it's not. It's funny because I think a lot of foreigners come to Paris in the summer, but I always say to people, I would really recommend coming in the spring or the early fall, because there's actual Parisians here, because as you know, for the entire month of August, everyone is gone.
Tumbleweeds going down the street. The Champs-Élysées is just tumbleweeds rolling.
Exactly. Yeah, you can hear a cricket, you know. And
Is that hang on? Is that also because of the fashion? Are you thinking fashion there, like subconsciously even? Like spring and autumn is when.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So
those are great. Well, that's part of the reason I'm happy. It's not nice out today because I've got my new trench coat on.
I was when I was researching you, I saw that you're big on trench coats. You love trench coats.
I'm big on jackets in general and coats.
Yeah.
I think that they are the key to an elegant attire.
Yeah, and then you can get away with anything underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I mean, you've seen what I'm wearing underneath.
Tell the listeners what you're wearing.
I'm in sort of old, baggy blue jeans and a white. I'm very layered today, so I have a white tank top on, tucked into my old blue jeans, and then I've got a lovely men's style shirt from a brand that I love. Who kind of personalized it, so my initials are on it.
Wow.
And then I've got a big khaki trench coat and a baseball cap. I did think as I walked out the door, I was slightly scrambling, and I did think, this is not the most professional outfit I've ever worn, but this is my kind of daily uniform and what I would wear around the neighborhood,
I think that's perfect because recently I also wanted to ask you before we leave the hot house that you live in.
Yeah, the hot house.
Well, because you're right under this
the greenhouse.
The zinc. You got those like yeah. So it's like doubly.
Yeah, but it's actually not that. So to be fair, it's not that bad. And we did think about this before moving in. So yeah, you have the zinc rooftops everywhere, but we have something called through air, which means you open one window that faces onto one street.
Yeah.
You open another window that faces onto the back courtyard. I mean, I had to learn this because, again, I grew up in Toronto where there's just aircon everywhere. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but that's how it is.
Yeah.
But my husband taught me that you strategically open certain windows and you actually have air that passes
like
through.
Like a draft or a current. What do they call it in French? Is there a word for it?
I don't think there is a word for it.
Is through air a thing, or did you just translate it? Where'd that come from?
I don't know.
Through
that's
air.
What we just. That's just how I picture it in my mind.
We don't need to tell the listeners exactly where you live, but just for the sense of it, you're on the left bank?
I'm on the left bank. I'm in the 6th.
6th, okay, cool.
Yeah, which is, it's really funny. I've kind of come full circle because, first of all, when I first moved to Paris, I was at the Sorbonne, which we're right near.
Yep.
So I was always in this neighborhood, and also it is kind of the typical left bank neighborhood that a lot of famous
sure.
American authors have lived in over the century, decades anyway. It's very sort of Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald.
I've got a question
style.
for you about. Do you think that I feel like since I've moved to the left bank too, I feel like I've changed my mind a little bit about like those places like Café Flore.
Café Flore.
And De Magot, right?
Yeah.
I've always thought, looking at it from the right bank, tourist traps.
No, I go to Café. I have many of my meetings at Café Flore.
Okay,
and so does my agent. So do a lot of people. Do you know who actually wrote about this? I think in the '90s, in a brilliant way, is Adam Gopnik for the New Yorker. He had this really brilliant.
I read Paris to the Moon before.
Yeah, so it's in Paris to the Moon.
Okay.
So he talks about the importance of distinctions between Parisian cafes, and it's all about who goes where. That sounds really basic. It's not who goes where in a sort of pretentious way. It's just everyone knows that that's the tourist cafe. Everyone knows that that's the.
So the De Magot is the tourist one, and Café
right
Flore
now,
is...
but it changes all the time.
How often does it change it? How can I keep up?
Yeah.
Where should I go? Can I go to Café Flore or what?
I think you are more of a Café Flore person. Okay.
What about the listeners in Listenerland?
Listeners in Listenerland, listen. I'm not going to tell you that the food is better at Café Flore than De Magot. I'm just going to tell you that people watching.
And I think the people watching will be exactly the same. They're like 10 meters apart.
No, because you're watching the people in the same cafe as you.
I didn't think about that. Okay. You've thought about this more than me.
I have thought about it.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you why I've thought about it yet, but I am thinking about it a lot right now.
Hang on, that's a clue about something.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm just going to drop that in.
Okay. No more of a clue than that?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll have to keep an eye on you and all the work that you're doing, which includes a lot of fashion journalism.
Yeah.
A lot of influencing. I know that some influencers don't like the word influencer.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm like post I'm a influencer. The problem with not liking the word the problem with influencer is it's the only word to describe influencer. So if someone wants to come up with a better word that actually explains that you do make a profit from certain but not all posts on your Instagram account, I am all ears, because yes, it has become a kind of a dirty word, but I actually think that it's really important when you do, and it's not my only job at all, but when you are, when you do have ads occasionally on Instagram, or all the time, as is the case for some people, not me, you got to be upfront about that.
Yeah.
Well, actually, a lot of countries now legally require you to, but I think that also just in terms of honesty towards your audience, I mean, it would be like opening a magazine and not knowing which page was an ad and which page was an advertorial and which page was a piece of editorial. That's how I see Instagram as well. You know, it's new media.
For someone young like you who's an influencer on Instagram, what do you think about other social media channels? Facebook? Dead?
Facebook.
Alive?
It's not dead. You can use it to like find people like the Yellow Pages,
right? Okay,
who you
so,
went to high school with.
Yeah, so not for.
I'm not saying it doesn't have its uses.
Yeah, right, but not for. What about TikTok?
TikTok's really cool.
Yeah.
You said I'm young. That's really nice. I'm not sure I'm young enough for TikTok. Although I do occasionally come across extraordinarily funny videos that people send me or they get reposted onto Instagram. So I'm not entirely opposed to the idea of attempting in a sort of like 30-something does TikTok, ha 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 kind of way. I might do it.
A lot of people like, the talk show hosts in America, those kind of people.
Yeah.
They're all getting on it now.
Oh, no, I know.
And they're all kind of doing this, what they were doing with Instagram a couple of years ago, like, oh, I've got a TikTok now.
I've got a TikTok.
Yeah.
But honestly, I do a lot of presenting work and I do a lot of video work as well. And I'm like, well, I do love video. Well, you do have all these fun, funky features. Maybe I should try it out.
You can reuse a lot of stuff on TikTok, as in everything you've ever done. That seems to be what people are doing. It doesn't have to be instant like Instagram stories or whatever.
Yeah, no. So I may take up TikTok.
Is this another Earful exclusive that you're giving us?
Well, I'm kind of just realizing this right now as we have this conversation that it could be really fun.
Yeah?
Should we do a TikTok video after this?
We could get started. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do it in the rain in the Luxembourg Garden.
Do you do TikTok?
No.
Should we launch?
We could.
Should we co-launch ourselves?
Maybe. My brother, who edits this very podcast, he's younger, and he younger than I am. And
so really young.
Yeah, he's always telling me I should do it. And I'm always like, it's just one more thing.
To be completely honest, I'll be completely honest.
Always.
So Instagram by Facebook, by Mark Zuckerberg, are very, very good at seeing competition come along and eating it.
Yeah, they're going to buy TikTok.
Yeah, but they also created stories, when Snapchat came along, they always create their own version of it. And for someone like me who's been around for a little bit of time on Instagram, I have a great deal of my audience just consolidated. I mean, obviously, I'm sure I have podcast listeners that aren't all the time on Instagram, or readers, in British Vogue or something, who probably aren't, I would imagine, that active on Instagram. But generally, it's a really great way of consolidating your audience. So I just, exactly as you say, I mean, the idea of going and launching another thing and you don't even know if you're going to touch the same viewership audience.
I always find that interesting to think, and I'm sure you have the same thing with your podcast, which we should talk about in a second, is there may be people listening, for example, to this show right now who have no interest in following on any social media channels, but they maybe listen to every single episode. Right. Or the other way around. I know for a fact there are people who follow this show on Instagram. I've met them, and they go, hey, I love what you do. And I go, oh, how did you discover the podcast? They go, I never listened to it, ever. But I
just like your Instagram account.
So it's probably the same with you guys and your podcast and
really
your journalism and stuff. But anyway, look, let's bring it to fashion.
I think that you're right about that. Sorry.
Which bit? That we should go to fashion?
No, of course, we should always go to fashion. What I mean is, I actually really hope that there are some people who aren't glued to Instagram in the way that many people in our generation are.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother topic. I'm not going to start lamenting the end of traditional media because I'll just start crying.
Well, we're about to jump into fashion anyway. It's something to get excited about.
Let's get excited.
Let's start with something. Let's start with something interesting that I touched on in a recent episode. I'm very interested in your thoughts about it because you are a foreigner in Paris.
Yes.
A lot of foreigners, especially women, come to Paris with the grand ideas of how they should dress. Women of all ages, men too, but especially women, I think.
Yeah.
On
Emily
average,
in Paris.
Okay, yeah. Well, have you watched it?
I'm not trying to just make it about Emily. Yeah, Sorry,
I haven't watched it yet, but maybe that's
I've watched it
contributing.
because I reviewed it for British Vogue, and I was so mean.
Oh, really? Okay, we'll have to link to that in the show notes. But besides that, do you think that women, when they come to Paris with these ideas of how to dress, do you think on average they're getting it right or very wrong, or you can be honest?
Yeah, I think they're getting it wrong.
Let's hear why.
Okay, there's no wrong way to dress. Let's just caveat that. Like, how you wake up in the morning and feel and want to feel is the great beauty of fashion, because it is just a constant cycle of creativity, and it's like wearable art that you can participate in and create every day. So that's my big caveat there. Like, there is no wrong or right way to dress, and I don't actually like when people say that. However, I totally see what you're getting at. If foreigners come to Paris and want to dress like they're Parisian, I think people imagine that there's a lot of fancy, well thought out, high-heeled, styled out, manicured, blow-dried perfection going on. And that is actually the stark opposite of how Parisians dress, male and female. But if you want to talk about the women specifically, I'm about to do a video just for my Instagram, for my IGTV, about Parisian hair, because it's like this kind of concept that obsesses people, and people ask me all the time, and I do sometimes do these beauty videos. Parisian hair, it's really simple. You wash it, you put maybe like a bit of conditioner in it or a mask, and then you don't do anything. You might brush it like the second you get out of the shower, and then you walk out of your house and you walk to your first meeting, or you get on the metro, and that is it. It is the most natural thing in the world. And I know that everyone bangs on about natural beauty. This is not like you went to your hairdresser and got him to do a natural beauty. No, it's like they don't want to look overdone, and looking like you've tried too hard is really... Now, obviously they don't all look like their home was in a tree. Like, they go to certain efforts. It's about styling things in a really organic way. It's just not overthought. And there are some classic pieces that never grow out of style that they invest in, instead of constantly going and buying a million high street things that are trendy. Again, I'm not saying no Parisians follow trends. Of course they do.
Are you doing these caveats because people will email in and say, "Oh,
no," because I don't want to seem like a bitch.
But wait, back to the hair.
Because people think that fashion people are basically the devil wears Prada, and I don't think that's it. And I don't want to make people feel excluded from this Paris fashion thing, when actually it's really, really easy to be part of.
Okay, well, we'll get your tips on what people could maybe do differently. But first, back to this hair. I got 2 quick questions on it.
Go for it.
Do you think it's the same with guys? That sort of nonchalant, I don't care about my hair. Yeah, same kind of thing, right?
Yes. But like shorter usually.
Shorter, yeah. Well, on average, compared to other countries, maybe French guys have a little bit more going on top.
They do, yeah. A bit of flow, as my brother would say.
The question, though, was, what do you think this means for French hairdressers? If everyone's just waking up in the morning and sort of making it look like they rolled out of bed, they maybe don't have as much work here as they would in other countries.
That's a very good question, but no, because they have to create the base, the palette, the tabula rasa.
The tabula rasa.
They have to, so the blank slate.
Yes. Is that Latin? Did you use Latin on the Eiffel Tower?
I just involved Latin in French hair. Finally.
How often do you get your hair done?
Once every 6 months.
Okay.
But I don't really do much because I don't dye it, which means that it's two very different colors. So it's quite blonde at the end of the summer, and it's quite brown in the winter. But that is, the cross I bear for not dyeing my hair, because I don't want to get into this endless cycle where you constantly have to be coloring it, like a lot of my friends in North America are in, by the way. And a lot of people have really beautiful hair, but because they've been like pouring dye onto it for the past 40 years, it looks a bit dead. So I'm trying to avoid that. No, what my hairdresser does is he does like a deep moisturizing treatment every 6 months, and he cuts it. But he cuts it really, 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 really well, so that it'll grow out and do the whole messy hair Parisian thing in a good way.
Right,
So I'm not saying that it's not. They do work.
Yeah.
And because everyone wants to be able to then have their hair like be footloose and fancy free. You have to have the right.
You need the right tabula rasa.
The tabula rasa, the base.
If you don't have to answer this, but what does a haircut cost in Paris like that?
I haven't paid for a haircut in about 5 years.
Because you're an influencer?
Yeah.
Well, okay, what is it?
Well, he started cutting my hair because I was presenting videos for French Elle, and we did a collaboration with L'Oreal, and then we just became really good friends.
So when that happens, is it an unspoken, and we don't necessarily have to talk about Fab here, who seems like a lovely guy, but
he's a great guy.
In general, like, when this kind of deal comes along, do they go, well, if you share this picture and tag me?
No, that deal was with French Elle. Okay. So I was their presenter.
Okay, so you're the middle woman.
So actually, I'm just the presenter.
Yeah.
I'm just the girl doing what you're doing right now, but on video. But my hair has to be good.
The good thing about podcasts is I didn't need to do my hair today at all. No one will know.
Your hair looks great, though.
Except if we do that video in there.
Oh, yeah, our TikTok video.
Goodness me.
Our TikTok launch. But let me answer your question. Generally, if it were like a direct collaboration with a hair care brand for Instagram, because I do see that you're asking that, and I know a lot of people are curious about that kind of thing. It's very professional. It would be negotiated between a representative from the brand and my agent, and I would know exactly when I had to post.
Yeah.
I always maintain the right to use my own wording, but there would probably be like a tag or a hashtag that they wanted included, and a general kind of message. I mean, it's an ad. These brands, it's like paying. I mean, it's not as big as paying for something on a bus stop, but it's an advertising opportunity like any other that's actually taken quite seriously these days in the fashion industry.
Is there a number, like on Instagram, I can't remember top of my head, but you got like 120,000-ish people following?
30.
130.
Yes.
But okay, so are you sort of like, God damn, I wish it was 150?
No.
Are people like that? Is there a
Some people
Is there a figure that people
but
want?
they need to like take a chill pill.
But is there a figure that, like, if you're out with a bunch of in Paris at one of these lovely events that you go to, which we should talk about too, I was scrolling through your Instagram feed, you go into the coolest places in Paris, not just for Fashion Week, but for all the time, right? Like, you see a different side of Paris than...
I guess you're right? Yeah.
But when you're all hanging around having a cigarette out the back, I don't know, are you like, well, sister, wait till you get to 250 and you're going to see... No, it's not like that.
No, so I would say, quite honestly, when you are over 100K, you're in a like category of having a big audience. But it's not all about how many people follow you, because... what people don't realize is engagement is really, really important. And it's really important to me as someone who's creating content. And let me just stress again that only like 1 in 10 or 15 of my posts is sponsored in any way. The rest of it is me.
What's your name on Instagram? People that are listening now.
Oh, it's Monica Ainley. So Monica with a C, Ainley. And then DLV, which is my like French last name. It's the short form for my husband's last name. So Monica Ainley DLV.
Fashion Week. I mentioned Fashion Week. It's a very confusing thing for the outsider like me, for an idiot when it comes to fashion.
Okay.
You hear Fashion Week, you think Fashion Week Paris, cool. It's not a week for one thing, is it?
It's not a... if only.
What is it?
So Fashion Week has actually been going on for a very long time. It was an opportunity for all of the international publications, buyers, very important. Because for a department store like, Barney's, those women in New York needed to know what their customer was after, needed to predict what their customer was after, go to the Paris shows, see the collections, and buy what they think the woman that comes and shops there in New York is going to want to buy. So it's this whole prediction thing, but actually buying is a real numbers game as well. So there's the editors who are the journalists and stylists for the magazines. Then there's the buyers and, photographers, everyone working in and around the industry. It's the time when the entire industry gathers. So it's like a fair, it's like my sister-in-law works in film distribution. She's constantly going to fairs. Yeah. It's the same thing, except that it was where the most stylish people in the world were gathering. So the ready-to-wear... I'll talk about the ready-to-wear collections, because haute couture is a whole nother kettle of fish.
I was listening to your podcast about
haute couture.
Yeah. Defining it, asking people what they thought about it.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But ready-to-wear is probably what gets the most press. It's also I'm not going to say it's accessible, but it's more accessible fashion that is supposed to be.
But the fashion week isn't accessible for
no,
regular
it's
Joe,
not.
is
Okay,
it?
so I'm getting to that.
Yeah.
So basically, it's in every end of September, early October, and every end of February, early March. It starts with New York, then London, then Milan, then Paris. Although I have to say Copenhagen has become very big on the scene.
They
these
got
days
their
as well.
finger on the pulse.
They've got their
Scandinavians.
finger on the pulse,
Of
as
lots
you
of,
know.
not just fashion, lots of things,
of everything. But they actually always have, like, Scandinavian design. I mean, look at mid-century modern Scandinavian design. It's like...
Those Danes knew what they were doing. Yeah. TV too now.
Oh my God. I mean,
Books.
They're brilliant. They're brilliant.
They're brilliant.
But so the four main cities are the ones I listed before, and it would be this scramble around the world, really, well, between Europe and North America, of flights and people not missing the shows, and it would sort of, New York would close and London would start the next day, and everyone had to, and it was almost like a bit absurd. So that was already happening, in the 90s. And then came street style.
Right.
Street style was developed by photographers like Bill Cunningham, who was a very important contributor to the New York Post? No, New York Times?
I don't know, but I know it was New York because I saw a documentary about it.
But so
That's
it's
amazing.
so street style, in its original form is a woman walking down the street. She's not necessarily looking at you. It's not a posed photo, and he would just snap her. A fellow I know called Scott Schumann, who's known as the sartorialist, great guy. He kind of like picked up on that more in my generation and really continued to popularize this concept with his blog.
Someone's doing it now in Paris.
Oh, but there's tons.
But
No.
there's someone that no one knows who it is or whatever. Do you know what I'm talking about? You know
so
who it is?
then it became
Is
this.
it you?
It's not me.
Do you know who I'm talking about though?
Of course I know.
What?
I'm telling you the history of street style, and then I'm going to tell you about this.
Okay.
So street style then became this obsessive thing, and 10 years ago with the dawn of influencers, then starting to have spots on the front row and it not just being journalists, editors, photographers, and these women were there looking great often, and it became so big that they often became dressed by the brand, and it became this very orchestrated thing. And you would have hundreds of street style photographers waiting outside of the shows to get these photos. And not of people famous like a kind of Kim Kardashian going to the airport. Just of these super niche fashion stars, right? And it's actually very overwhelming. It's very intense. So then the brand started getting really involved, and they'd lend you your look before the show, and that's all super nice. It's absolutely lovely when a brand asks to dress you for the show, except some people really lamented the fact that the purity of old-fashioned street style that like a Scott Schumann back in the day or a Bill Cunningham would have just spotted on the street like that.
Right.
That magic was kind of gone
It's a bit
because,
scripted now,
it's a bit... Well, there's 100 photographers standing there. You pose, you give the shot, and you leave. And by the way, you've been lent the jacket. So it's not what you just rolled out of bed and wore to the show. So that kind of magic is now brilliantly being recreated by a mystery account, the creator of whose identity is hidden, called Parisians in Paris. And there are now a bunch of copycat accounts all over the world. I'm from Toronto. There's Torontonians in Toronto and everything. And he or she.
Yeah, definitely a she now.
I don't know.
I think I read something about them. Someone wrote a big write, or maybe you
He
wrote
or
it.
she.
Yeah.
I didn't write it. He or she protects her his or her identity.
Definitely a woman.
So,
but this
I don't
man
know.
or
Maybe
woman,
I'm giving you a red herring.
I love red herrings on the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
But they definitely have they know what's going on because for people who don't know what we're talking about, they take a picture of someone that's dressed well in Paris and then they typically write, look at this Parisian, she's wearing this,
Exactly.
and they know, it's not...
Exactly. And it's not... So there's nothing formulaic about it.
You've featured on it before, right?
I have.
You have.
I have, darling.
So as a past guest on the show, Caroline de Maigret.
Yes.
That's two from the Eiffel Tower who've been on...
Pretty good innings.
That's pretty good, right?
And I don't know how this person does it because she has eyes everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, now he or she allows people to contribute. So if you're sitting on the bus and you see an amazingly well-dressed person, you can snap a photo. But there's something really brilliant and creepy about it because the person... You do it when they're not looking, right? You don't want the person to see you.
I've noticed
And
that.
then you can send it in, and if the creator of the account thinks that it's chic, he or she will post it.
Yeah, so it's coming back, the anonymous...
So the anonymous street style thing. And the reason, and I've thought a lot about this, that I think the reason that people love it so much, because it got to like 500,000 followers in a matter of short months. I think that the reason people are such fans is that they don't feel like they're being advertised to. They don't feel like big brands are sort of have their hand on this and are kind of, I think sometimes people feel like they're being tricked into buying stuff.
Sure.
This is quite literally people walking down the street in Paris and not knowing the photo is being taken.
Yeah.
Some people think it's creepy. I think it's brilliant.
And it's also around here a lot, like the left banky kind of area.
Yeah, although she kind of goes, she kind of goes everywhere. Here I go with the red herring again. He or she kind of goes all over town.
Yeah.
You don't really get out into the suburbs very often,
No.
but the whole point is to see what's going on inside.
Do strangers take pictures of you? Do people sometimes go, oh my gosh, it's Monica, I'll take a little picture of her?
There's a lot of more famous people
No,
than
I
me
know,
than
but I
at
mean,
Cafe. People kind of sometimes very nicely come up and say that they like what I do, and it's really nice.
Yeah. I want to talk about your podcast because time is running away from us very
Is it?
quickly. Yeah, it's running away.
Sorry, I'm very chatty.
Oh, it's all right. It's perfect for a podcast.
Yes, I suppose it
Speaking
is.
of podcasts, you have one that's on a temporary hiatus, but may well be coming back.
It may well be coming back.
Is that a promise?
Yeah. Any advertisers call me? No, I'm kidding. No. We
do.
No, I think I'm fairly certain we are going to be able to make it work. It's a little difficult because Camille lives in London and I live in Paris.
Camille is your co-host.
My
and the show is
co-host.
called Fashion No Filter.
Fashion No Filter. You can get it on iTunes or Spotify. I just did the plug thing again.
No, it's fine. I was going to do it anyway. Fashion No Filter, you guys know how podcasts work, but the idea is like those episodes are a lot more produced than this episode we've just done now. Like there's segments, there's different guests, there's topics that you sort of dive into.
Yeah, they were, especially in the first 2 seasons, and then it stopped being... It got a little bit more like this, although the charming Parisian background ambient noise was never something we really delved into, and I have to say, I think it's a really nice touch. It makes, hopefully you guys feel like you're sitting here with us.
In Treize Jardin, we can give these guys a shout out for letting us sit in the corner before they open.
Treize Jardin is a beautiful cafe. When a French friend first took me here, and I didn't know it, she was like, I can't believe you've never been here. This is where all the foreigners are.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
But it's lovely and the food is delicious.
So let's talk. Let's end on this, as we are actually out of time now. But the podcast, if you're going to bring it back, what can people look forward to, or what can they look forward to in going back through the old episodes?
Well, if you want to go and have a deeper dive into the Parisian fashion scene, we have interviewed some really niche, famous, big, important fashion people who have a lot to say and will probably explain it better than I have. So you've got a really, really wide array. And it's all in English, so to make it more accessible to... Because my co-host is French, but we really wanted to make it something that as many people as possible could listen to and get a sense of what's going on in fashion. It's also unfiltered. You know, we do try to be quite honest, and there's a lot of news review as well, so you can go back over important moments in the past 5 years of fashion history and catch up if it's something that interests you. And I think, you know, I can't say exactly how it's going to be when we come back, but hopefully you enjoy a little bit of fashion critiquing, a bit of news review, a bit of chit-chat between my co-host and I.
Perfect. So everyone keep an eye. You can subscribe to it now on the podcast and it'll just pop up when the new ones come. But we've run out of time, Monica.
No.
Thank you so much for sharing your time and story with me. I feel like there's a million other questions I could have asked you, so it'll have to be a part 2 sometime.
Yeah, whenever you want. I was just getting started.
Well, you have an open invitation. So thanks for being on the show and good luck.
Thank you so much for having me.
So there you have it. That was the chat with Monica Ainley, aka Monica de la Villadière. Hope my pronunciation passes the test there. As we said in that episode, we did go out in the rain and we filmed a video. I'm gonna put it on TikTok. I'll see what happens. I'll also share it on Instagram, maybe somewhere else as well. But we recorded a limerick. It turns out we're both fans of limerick. If you don't know what that is, I'll play it for you so you can hear it. But the idea, I actually really like doing this. I might do it for more episodes in the future, but go and check the Eiffel Tower on all the social media, including TikTok, to see what we came up with. But here's a sneak peek.
If Paris for you is a passion,
then style should be something you're smashing.
and on the podcast this week, this expert will speak
In depth on the subject of fashion.
Check it out!
Okay, enough about that. Thanks, Monica, for being on the show. I did promise there'd be some news. Let's start with the game show because that was wild. I woke up a couple of days ago and I had a bunch of messages on Instagram from people saying, "Oh my God, I saw you on TV last night. Oh, your show made the game show." And I didn't know what anyone was talking about. And because of the time difference, all you Americans were asleep by the time I woke up. So I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure what the show was or what had happened. So this came in from Freddie. And he says, "Congratulations. Tonight, the Eiffel Tower was a trivia question on a national primetime show in the US, The Chaser, on ABC. He says, "I've been listening to your podcast since episode 1 with James and Slim and the Beast. I love the growth and progress you made. Back then, I thought you'd last a week. Boy, am I glad to be wrong. I've attached the clip. Best to you and your family from Freddie." And here is the audio of the clip that he sent.
In science, the typical pH scale ranges from 0 to what number?
14.
Correct. The Eiffel Tower is a popular podcast about what European city?
Paris.
Correct. What gas is fittingly the official state element of Nevada?
So amazing to hear that the contestant got it right. It turns out, I didn't know anything about this, but people messaged me later. The guy who answered it correctly, his name is Ken Jennings, apparently a Jeopardy champion, apparently the most successful, the most winningest game show contestant in US game show history. So who knows if he's actually heard about my show? Who knows if it was an educated guess? But I'm glad to have seen it. Thanks to everyone who let me know about that. And thanks to Freddie for sending in the email. I want to read out the end of his email because there's something fun there. He says, "By the way, a suggestion from someone who appreciates language and wordplay as you do. I think you should nickname your listeners and your team and your squad Earbuds. Think about it." He says, "Again, congratulations. The success is well deserved. I'm rooting for you and your family." Thanks, Freddie. Let's think about these earbuds for a second. I think your nickname for your listeners, team, and squad should be Earbuds. And he put buds in brackets. So I guess ear from the Eiffel Tower and everyone listens to it. Buds, like friends, I guess. Earbuds are what you put in your ear. I don't know. It's not up for me to say. What do you guys think? Do you want to be earbuds? Should we listen to Freddie? Let me know what you think. Let's see if it catches on. But thanks for the email and for sending in the clip, which I shared widely on social media. Who would have thought it? A question on a game show. Lastly, the other news that I wanted to share before I let you guys get on with your day is just a big thank you. Because if you're new around here, perhaps, you might not know that we wrote a children's book. My wife, who is an illustrator on the side, really, she's also a shoe and handbag designer. We made a book. I wrote the rhyming text. She did the pictures, and it was our second book. We put it on Kickstarter to fund the initial print run, and it went wild. It went crazy. It reached the target in an hour and 40 minutes, and it kept flying after that. So rest assured, that book is going to be printed. It's going to be in your hands really quickly. If you missed the Kickstarter, it's okay. We'll be printing off more books than were purchased. That's the whole idea. So you'll be able to get it through that same website, theeiffeltower.com/Roger. If you want us to mail it out with those first ones, you better be quick. Otherwise, I assume it'll come in about November. Definitely before Christmas. theeiffeltower.com/Roger. That's enough for me. Keep your eye out around Paris because Fashion Week is beginning in a week. Maybe you'll see Monica walking around wearing a trench coat. Wouldn't surprise me. Go and follow her on Instagram and let her know you enjoyed her appearance on the show. Otherwise, thanks for listening. I'll be back again next week with a food critic, Alec Lebrano, talking about the food revolution that's going on in France right now. And then soon after, I'll take you guys fishing on the Seine with the king of street fishing in France. All that to look forward to on the Eiffel Tower. Hope you're subscribed, hope you're enjoying it, and have a lovely week wherever you are. Au revoir!